Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Historia Politica Publica. In the episode of today, I will talk about Harry Potter. Probably all of you know what this story is about, the books, probably you have watched the movies and so on. But the thing is, I don't want to analyze the story, it has been done many times, but I wanted to make an analogy between Harry Potter and the Cold War, and how the first is a kind of allegory of the latter. In order to do so, I will try to pick some ideas from every book in order to compare what was happening in Hogwarts with the Muggles, with the Wizard World, and also with the Cold War after 1945. So, in that sense, let's speak about the place where everything is realized, which is the Castle of Hogwarts. The Castle of Hogwarts was founded by the members, by four members, which after that they become the leaders of the different houses. So you have Godric Gryffindor, Salazar Slytherin, Helga Hufflepuff, and Rowena Ravenclaw. In that sense, the four of us agreed to create a castle in order that people could study the wizardry in a kind of free way, like a place to provide a free education. What happened? This is a clear analogy of the world after 1945, when fascism has been defeated in Italy, Nazi Germany has surrendered, and after when Japan has submitted after the destruction implemented by the United States with the throwing of the bomb. So Hogwarts, led by these four people represent, in my opinion, the leaders of United States, the Soviet Union, England, and France. So, Godric Gryffindor is the United States, is the leader of the New World Order, is the House of the Bravery. It is how we see the story of Harry Potter through the eyes of the House of Gryffindor. So for that reason, we always believe that Gryffindor are the bravest, are the best people in the castle. We tend to empathize more with them, obviously, because J.K. Rowling has decided to tell the story under the eyes of Harry Potter. Also, their best friends are from Gryffindor, like Hermione, Ron Weasley, Ginny Weasley, Neville Longbottom, and many others. In that sense, this represents how Hollywood and the culture industry has portrayed the United States as the kind of pioneer of liberal democracy, of the savior of the world, how the actions taken by the United States are leading the world, not just during the Cold War, but even nowadays with NATO and so on. In that sense, Gryffindor is United States, the Soviet Union obviously is Slytherin, because Salazar Slytherin is one of the members who decide to retreat and leave them alone, and this obviously symbolizes not just the building of the Berlin Wall, but even before, with the beginning of the Cold War, when the four allies, they cannot have a struggle between them, and the Soviet Union retreat to the east of Europe, and the Cold War begins. The Cold War has been argued that began in 1943, after the meeting in Tehran, before the Second World War. Other people have agreed that it was even before, in 1917, after the Russian Revolution, but we can stipulate maybe a date like in 1947, like some years, 2 years before the end of the Second World War. And the other houses, I will say that Ravenclaw will be France, because Ravenclaw is characterized by have the most clever students, and I think that this symbolizes the current of philosophy in France in the second half of the 20th century with Jean-Paul Sartre. You have Simone de Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir precisely symbolized by Luna Lovegood. I will explain that later. Albert Camus, Michel Foucault, Derrida, Deleuze, and many others. And Hufflepuff, I think, is Great Britain, because it's the house that, at least in the main story, it has the less importance, and same as Britain, that once was the mighty power in the earth after the Second World War. It is the United States that take the hegemony and become the biggest superpower on earth, and even Great Britain see with despair how the Soviet Union, that 20 years ago it was a backward society, has industrialized more than the another time Great Britain, the power empire. So with these four kind of figures going through the Cold War, We go to the different books. We see, for example, how in the philosophical stone, the first of the books, the idea is to find this kind of treasure which will give you the immortality. Immortality, I think it symbolizes here the kind of idea, the truth ideology in a world with the fight, the dichotomy between capitalism and communism, the West and the East. This person who finds the philosophical stone will apparently force the others to assume that their ideology is the kind of perfect one. So, in that sense, I believe that because at the end of the philosophical stone, neither Quirrell and Harry representing the United States, trying to impose the hegemony of capitalism worldwide, and Quirrell, which symbolizes communism, which has Voldemort in its back, and this could be the person who entered in Hogwarts, like a kind of spy of the Soviet Union, this kind of intellectual who tried to impose the vision in the West to express Marxism. This could be represented by the Frankfurt School, for example, people like Adorno, Horkheimer, from Walter Benjamin, although he died before the Cold War, Herbert Marcuse, and many others. But because the philosophical stone is destroyed, we enter in a world which is characterized by postmodernism, in which we are not able to find the truth. So, neither capitalism and communism find the solution to kind of impose which ideology is better for the world, because the philosophical stone that symbolizes this truth with capital T has been destroyed. In the second movie, we have The Chamber of Secrets, in which obviously we are told that before leaving the school, so before leaving this kind of United Nations, we could say the Soviet Union, symbolized by Salazar Slytherin, he put a kind of present in the castle, which is the basilisk, this kind of monster who is trying to destroy the students who are not from Slytherin during in the future. Obviously, this basilisk, the Chamber of Secret, it is opened by Lord Voldemort. When he's a kid in Hogwarts, it's called Tom Riddle. That happened 50 years before the Chamber of Secrets. So the Chamber of Secrets is 1992, that will be 1942, like very close to the Cold War, by the way. And in that sense, the thing is like the basilisk represent the Soviet spy that was operating during the Cold War in order to kind of implement their ideas in the Western world, but also we could see in the opposite way, like the British or American spies trying to impose their hegemony within the Soviet sphere. So in that sense, the basilisk is like a monster that finally is defeated. I was thinking also that this could be represented as the current of McCarthyism, how Senator McCarthy started a witch hunt against communists in the United States, and there were even people who were killed for being a communist. So the killing of the basilisk could symbolize this idea, or even in the Soviet Union, the people who were in the Gulag that were accused to be anarchists or liberals or Trotskyists and so on. So this kind of trying to destroy people who did not think as you do. So this kind of dissidents who are in a particular place. In the third book, we have The Prisoner of Azkaban, which I think that The Prisoner of Azkaban is a symbolism of the colonies in the Cold War. And I think this is very interesting because we see how Sirius Black, by the way, the surname Black can reference the people in Africa, the colonies in Algeria, in Ghana, in Kenya, in Morocco, and Nigeria, and almost all of the continent, but also in Asia with Indochina. We have also later on when Indochina is liberated, the war in Vietnam. But the interesting thing is that Sirius Black decides to leave the prison after 13 years, I think, because he has seen in the newspaper that Peter Pettigrew, who is the real guilty one about the murder of the father of Harry Potter, of James Potter and Lily Potter, although obviously Voldemort carried the assassination, but it's Peter Pettigrew who is the whistleblower who indicate Lord Voldemort where they are living. And in that sense, the thing is, Sirius Black do not leave the prison before, because apparently he does not have a reason to do that. Why, or how do he find the reason to leave the prison? Obviously, he does through the newspaper. The power of the media was very important during the colonies for the process of the colonization, such as Radio Cairo in Egypt to support the Algerian independence, the role of the newspapers to kind of spread the idea of nationalism against the oppressor that happened in Indochina, in Ghana, happened also even in other areas like in parts of South America and so on. Like that happened 1 century before. And in that sense, it's the newspaper in which Sirius Black see the family of the Wesley in Egypt, where they have this mouse, which is apparently is the pet of Ron Weasley, but this is a wizard which has been transformed in an animal. This wizard is Peter Pettigrew. So when Sirius see that Peter Pettigrew is alive and is the pet of a student of Hogwarts, he decides to go to Hogwarts. It is interesting that it is precisely that the Wesley go to Egypt, because in 1956 there was the Suez Canal crisis, in which the Egypt leader Gamal Abdel Nasser, the nationalistic leader of Egypt, decided to nationalize the Suez Canal, which has been property of French and Britain for many years. And in that sense, it is France and Britain who decide to attack Egypt with the help of Israel, but they fail strepitously. And at the end, it is Egypt who win that battle during the Cold War, which was important to put another kind of needle in the heart, a knife in the heart of Great Britain. It was another example of the loss of hegemony of Great Britain in the way that they could not even recover the Suez Canal. In that sense, Sirius Black is the colonies, is the people of Algeria, of Ghana, of Indochina who fight against the oppressor, who once can use the role of the media and have a great reason which legitimizes his fight, is able to escape from the colony, from the prison. But at the same time, same as happened with the process of the colonization, the people who are liberated, they never get away from the yoke of the previous oppressor. Sirius Black is always persecuted by justice. Even though he left the prison, he have to live away as an outcast because the Ministry of Magic and the wizard world are still looking for him. The Dementors are always surrounded Hogwarts, but even later when he escaped, he can never live in peace, and 2 years later he's killed by Beatrix. Precisely, this is the idea of neocolonialism that has been theorized by many political authors. It was warned by Frantz Fanon and so on, how the colonized powers, even though they left the actual territory in Africa, Asia or Latin America and so on, they will be able to impose their own ideology there. Having people who had been studying in London, in Paris, in Berlin and many other countries, and impose the Western ideology in those countries, henceforth controlling the capitalist transactions, the kind of way of education, like teaching Western philosophers in that areas and so on. And even in 2013, the Mireille Fanon, which is the daughter of Frantz Fanon, she pointed how in Africa is submitted by Europe, how the European Bank has functionaries in many countries of Africa, and they are dealing with the transaction, obviously benefiting Europe. So Sirius Black, same as the colonizer, unfortunately can never escape the prison that has been imposed upon him by an unfair way, this is important. Sirius Black has been condemned for 13 years for a crime that he did not commit, same as the colonies, which they did not commit any crime, just happened to be rich in resources, and the powers like France, Spain, United Kingdom, Belgium, the Dutch and so on were expropriating their territories, killing thousands of people, millions of people, and destroying the life of many more. And in that sense, both Sirius and the colonizers share the same destiny, which is a life of torment from they can never escape. Going to the fourth book, which is the Goblet of Fire. This is an interesting symbolism with the rise to going to outer space. Like we have here the kind of champions of the Three Wizard tournament. In theory, they have to be three. One is Cedric Diggory, which is this person from Hufflepuff, the kind of British house. And we see here we have a kind of example of even though Great Britain was falling in power, they still wanted to become an empire again, wanted to fight, and the war of the Falkland Wars was an example of that. And Diggory symbolized this idea, the kind of separation. But at the same time, there is a trick in the tournament, because once that Britain see to be again or have the chance to become again a visible force in the world, it is Harry Potter, which is representing United States Gryffindor, which at the end overshadowed him. Although I will explain the end what happened, which is also very illustrative about the relation between USA and Britain. We have also Victor Krum, which obviously is the athlete of the East, is from Bulgaria, the Soviet Union. He is the best player of Quidditch in the world, the best flyer because he's a searcher, same the position that Harry Potter plays in Hogwarts. He's the best, and obviously he symbolizes Yuri Gagarin, which became the first person in the Earth to go to the outer space. I think it happened in 1957, if I am not wrong, before Armstrong reached the moon. He was the first person, I think in 1963, if I am not wrong, but I think it's during the Cold War how he became the first person to reach the space. And this was Yuri Gagarin, symbolized by Victor Krum. And Fleur Delacour, well, in a kind of series that shows the patriarchal aspect of Hogwarts, of slavery towards the slave, I will go now later, the dismiss of the muggles, it is not surprised that Fleur Delacour is simple, this beautiful woman who is obviously being played by the others, the people from the Box Buttons, the French school. They symbolize the exotic beauty of people going from outside, and even they have this debate like, oh, we should ask them to go to our ball, to the ball with us. But in the book, they never realize that maybe they can ask to go with you. You don't need to ask them, but this has this kind of chauvinist approach, which is permeates part of the literature of Harry Potter, and in that sense they are not important anymore. In fact, the highlight of Fleur Delacour is when she's unable to help her sister, which is in the dark waters of the lagoon around Hogwarts, and precisely at the end she kisses Harry Potter and Ron as a kind of grateful way to say them thanks for helping her daughter. But that's it. It is true that in next books she will fall in love with Bill Weasley, which is this alternative guy, and from then on it's true that Fleur Delacour takes an important role because Bill Weasley becomes a werewolf. Still she wants to be with him, and they form an example of intersectionality, multiculturalism within the Harry Potter world, which I think is very interesting in that way. But what happened with the Three Wizard tournament? At the end, it is Victor Krum, which has been controlled by the evil force, which it is done by Barty Crouch Jr. It's controlling him, and this symbolizes, I think it's an Oriental approach to the Soviet Union, like, oh, there are people from that part of the world who really want to integrate with the Western world, but they have been influenced for many years through the adoctrination carried on by the Soviet Union for decades, and henceforth for them it is impossible to escape from that prison. And precisely at the end that Harry Potter and Cedric Diggory, they join together to defeat the Soviet Union in the maze, and obviously they reach the globe, they touch it together, and they win the True Wizard tournament at the end, because they allied. This is a symbolism of the relation between the UK and the United States, something that Boris Johnson called this special relation between us and them. Precisely in the book, Harry Potter, before reaching the globe, which is at the core of the maze, he had to face a sphinx, which I think symbolizes again the defeat of Great Britain in the Suez Canal crisis in Egypt. But here in the book, J.K. Rowling gives a boost to British kind of confidence status, and here it is England, it is USA that defeats Egypt, because in In the war, what happened it is that the United States became angry with Israel, France, and England, and they basically told them that going to the Suez Canal, it was a bad idea. So here, Harry Potter symbolizing US defeat the Sphinx through diplomacy. But at the end, obviously, Cedric Diggory, which symbolized the idea of Britain kind of having an important role if the world is killed by Lord Voldemort, and in the end, just the United States escape under against the yoke of Slytherin, of the representative of Slytherin, which is again the Soviet Union. So whereas Voldemort symbolized the most evil aspect of Stalinism, even though J.K. Rowling explained clearly that it was a reference to Hitler, but I think you can also make a reference to Stalin, which is a person who at the end was surrounded by people who feared them more than had confidence with him. And this is clear when Voldemort, Stalin died, and the next leader, with his Khrushchev, explains in the secret meeting, secret under quote, that Stalin committed crimes that killed millions of people in the Gulag. So, going to the 5th book, I think I will leave to another episode because I want to touch something in the 4th book which is very important, and this is something which is very illustrative of the kind of contradiction between Harry Potter world, which sometimes seems feminist having important women like Luna Lovegood and Hermione Granger, but or Lily James, which is the mother of Harry Potter, one of the most important characters without any doubt of the story. At the same time, you have the kind of structural state in which there is huge inequality. We can see how the elves are basically slaves in the world of the wizard, which is incredible that this happened in that year, which is 1992. And precisely this in 1994, the year of the Goblet of Fire, which does not appear in the movie, which, I mean, this is very interesting. And I think that depicts the reality of Hollywood, of the United States, which is a highly unequal society. How this part of the elves, it is not depicted in the movies, but in the book is very well explained. In the 4th book, The Goblet of Fire, Hermione Granger, which is without any doubt, the character with more consciousness about the world, alongside Luna Lovegood, the person from Ravenclaw, which symbolized Simone de Beauvoir, as I mentioned earlier. Hermione created an organization in order to defend the right of the elves. The society is called the Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare, SPEW, and was an organization founded in 1994 by Hermione Granger in response to what she saw as gross injustice in the treatment of house elves at the 1994 Quidditch World Cup. Very important, the year 1994, when the World Cup was celebrated, it was also the year in which the World Cup was celebrated in the United States. In that case, the World Cup of football, or as they call it, the soccer. United States, one of the most unequal places to live, at the same time defending the ideas of liberalism, promoting itself as a kind of savior of humanity and so on. It is a deeply unequal society in which there are many homeless in the streets, the mental health problems are rising, the welfare state is minimum. If we compare with Europe, they don't have public health and so on. The education system is very expensive. So in that sense, in that moment, in the 1994 Quidditch World Cup, Hermione, which sees like people from different countries gathering together in the World Cup and so on, which I think that year is celebrated in France, if I am not wrong. I think they took yes, I think they appear in France or UK. I don't remember exactly, but it was some of those parts of Europe. And the thing is that she sees like different people there, but still realize how the elves are basically exploited by the wizard, which is absolutely insane. Like, okay, the wizards are fighting in theory against Lord Voldemort. This guy is the evil, the Malfoy family, because they have support Voldemort. They are disguising themselves. Obviously, this is absolutely crazy what is happening, but we see people, we see different races which are being punished just for being different than us. In that sense, having been deeply upset at the treatment and general prospect of House Elf, both in Hogwarts and the rest of the wizarding world, Hermione set up the organization, the Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare, in order to champion their rights and question their standing in wizarding law and elf legislation. It is indicative that originally Hermione wanted to call the organization, quote, stop the outrageous abuse of our fellow magical creatures and campaign for a change in their legal status. Obviously, since it will be not fit on a badge, it was given its current name. So the original name was retained as the hint of the group manifesto. The manifesto is an analogy of the Communist Manifesto created by Marx and Engels in order to establish an equal society among the whole world, and trying to appeal to international solidarity, same as Hermione tries to do in the book. Although at the end, the only members are Ron Weasley, Harry Potter, and the elf Dobby, and Neville Longbottom, obviously. And I think Ron Weasley always is laughing about this initiative, something using a kind of paternalistic approach to Hermione. I don't remember the excuse that he gives to not get more involved, but the thing is, like, it is an example of the racism inherent in the world of Harry Potter. And which it never gets resolved anyway, because obviously Dobby, which is the good guy, he's free. But the thing is, like, okay, if we can free Dobby, why cannot we free the other elves? What is Dumbledore doing in Hogwarts, not freeing all the elves? What this is happening? And after, when we see the treatment that Lucius Malfoy takes against Dobby, we say, oh, these guys are very evil, they should be sanctioned. But still, this is the only case that we see in the book. But what about all the others elves that they have been slaves for their whole life and they don't have any other aim in their life that keeps serving their master? So this is a clear analogy of what happened in the United States with the slavery, what happened, which is the war of Hogwarts and so on, and how this segregation has not been solved yet. Hope it will be in the future, and for sure that will hit. But at the same time, we have another part of the conundrum. In order to promote the liberation of the slaves, that are the elves, perhaps we could also need to consider the relation between the muggles and the wizards. The muggles are those people who are non-magic, and they cannot go to Hogwarts or to other school of magic. And obviously they are being diminished as muggle, or even Hermione is called like dirty blood because her parents are muggles, but she received a letter to go into Hogwarts. In that sense, obviously, the muggles are depicted as something not evil, but something people like ignorant, people that you cannot even consider them seriously. Also, the only muggles that we know in deep are the family of Harry Potter, which are basically they are evil people. But they cannot represent the whole muggle community. But this is what J.K. Rowling is doing in the book, like, because those are the only muggles that we can really know about them. They are misogynist, they are ignorant, they they exploit Harry Potter, they bully him, they put him under to live under the stairs in the house. We have Dudley, which symbolizes the all greediness of a kind of human being and so on. So I think it is unfair portraying the whole muggles of the world using all the image of the Vernon family. The Dursley family. Vernon is the uncle. And in that sense, first of all, we need to eliminate slavery among elves and other races. We need to liberate the muggles, and also, more than liberate, I think, to know them better, to try to create relation between muggles and wizards, because at the same time, it is hypocritical that even though there are no relations, we have how the Ministry of Magic has relation with the Prime Minister of Britain, which is like, okay, so you are segregated in different schools in different worlds, but the leaders of the both worlds, let's say, or from Britain, I mean, because they don't explain in the book, but I guess that there are schools also in the United States, and the leader of the United States speaks with the leader of the school of there. But here we have the Prime Minister of UK speaking with the Prime Minister of the Ministry of Magic, which in the 6th book is Rufus Greenwood, but before is Cornelius Fudge. And so there are relations, but at the same time, they don't let the people, the common people, to ally themselves. I mean, this is like when in the colonies, the rich people, the powerful people in the colonies, they were allied with the British people. And so it is at the end the mass of people, the majority, the poor people, who are being oppressed by both their own leaders and also by the external ones. And I think I will finish here the episode because I wanted to talk about the last 3 books. Also, why Slytherin is always in the chambers, why they are being kind of dismissed by the others, this kind of social conditioning, and how we as reader always sympathize with Gryffindor. We feel pity for Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw we like it, especially the people who, like me, love Luna Lovegood, think is one of the best characters, and I will delve into it later in the 5th, 6th, 7th book.